So we're going to be sharing real life examples. In fact, Donna's going to be doing a lot of that, because I think it's probably fair to say over the last year, Donna, you and I have learned a lot about where accountants go wrong with recruitment. And you know what? Car crash stories are the best ones to learn from, aren't they?
Yeah, there's been a lot of learning in the last year, and but as you say, really good learning, but putting us in a much better position to assess moving forward.
Yeah. As with everything you know about the club, it's going to be hype free, practical to implement. We're not going to do the, oh, well, you need to go on this course to do it. Now, Rebecca, we will treat you as a member of the club today. So we will mention, and within the membership library, go to this, within the membership library, go to that. So we will do that, but we will very much treat you as a member of the club. We are going to give you some options to hire a team member with or without using a recruiter. So if you want to do it yourself, we'll tell you everything. Donna is going to share 25 years of experience. And at the end of the workshop, we will mention to Rebecca very briefly how you can join the club. If you don't want us to say that, just send us a direct message and go, not now for me, and we won't embarrass you. It's absolutely fine. So what are we going to get from today? Well, 50 years of experience. Well, not quite 50, just under 50 years of experience. Although, Ian, when you built your own business up, you must have been at the pointy end of recruiting people.
Yeah, I've employed over 55 people. I was just working it out actually over the space of 15 years, and I probably got it right 50% of the time.
Absolutely. So you're going to hear what works, what really doesn't work. And one of the big tools of your trade is the job advert versus the job description. And we're going to show you the differences and what needs to be put in both. All too often when we recruit, we think, oh no, I need a new team member now. And so we're going to actually talk about the importance of long-term thinking, the importance of your talent management plan. So to give you an idea, with the Accountants Millionaires Club is part of the wider, the Excedia group. We will be 8 people tomorrow in the business. Next week will be 9 people. And we'll probably be, by the end of August, 10 people in our business. And it's probably fair to say that our hottest topic, as we are growing, that's talked about in our leadership team meetings, is who is the next hire and what is the reason for them. And that is constantly, and we're constantly talking about our talent management plan. We'll give you a timeline of to-dos to hire your 1 in a million candidate who excels and stays within your organization. Plot twist, your 1 in a million candidate doesn't exist. Just letting you know that now. To let you know, we're going to talk about what actually goes into the recruitment process. We will talk about what you can and cannot ask at interview. And by the way, you can ask about their childcare situation. You can ask, but you'll hear about how you ask is really important and your reasons for asking. And also, we'll tell you what to expect if you decide not to use the talented services of Donna and her shortly growing team of Alvina and Mel, of what to expect if you choose a local recruiter. If you could recruit in a great team member, would you really, really want? Is it your profit margin that would make the difference? Is it about actually not feeling as if you've built yourself a job? When you've got another head in the team, it allows you to give a more coverage and better service. Getting that good ROI. So we're all talking about this of how to free me up is so important. And from a growth aspect, because that is what we're about in the club. We are all about growth. That is what we do. We're a one-stop shop for growth. We know if you're going to grow much beyond 150K, you're going to need a UK team-based member. Not only maybe the admin person, because how big are you now, Rich?
Yeah, so there's 3 guys in the Philippines, 2 accountants, 1 marketing guy, and 1 very, very part-time person in the UK, and then me.
Yeah, so what turnover are you now, Rich?
Sorry, what was that, sorry?
What's your turnover now?
About 80K, I think, run rate at the moment. So, yeah, edging towards that 100K marker slowly.
Yeah.
You and Ian's help and Val's too.
Yeah, which is good. One of our small but growing success stories that we think a lot of you, Rich, actually. We like your thinking.
Oh, thank you.
We might not agree with your views on social media, but we'll leave that one there. So, but actually, if you want to grow much beyond 150k, you will need a UK team member. We are very aware that you can go to 300k with a completely offshored business. You will probably need some admin support in the UK to help you, but we know you can go to 300k with a completely offshore business. But at that point, your business will start to creak. So what's the agenda? We're going to look at where it goes wrong. We're then going to look at the recruitment process. We're going to look at how to put together a job description, and then we're going to wrap up into next steps. So let's talk about where accountants go wrong. So just Donna, talk to me about this lack of long-term thinking about talent, because I know as a business coach to accountants through the years, is one of the things that every accountant I know is brilliant at is really looking at their costs. Is that about fair? Not if that's about fair, that the thing you excel about is looking at your costs, am I right? As a result, often the operations are run very leanly and recruitment happens too late. So, where have you seen that happening before, or actually positive stuff? Because I know, Izzy, you now talk with Donna about your long-term thinking. So Donna, just a little bit now, what is the wrong, what goes wrong when there's this lack of long-term thinking about talent?
Well, to be honest with you, you need to think longer term, because people are hard to find, the right people are hard to find, and then if you don't keep them in the right role for them, you lose them, so you've lost all that time. So actually you've spent a fortune on bringing somebody into your business that isn't right for your longer term plans. And what we tend to do is we tend to recruit what we think we need now. For example, with one of your members, they needed immediate cover at the moment, and actually more cover because of their personal situation. And what we discussed around was, okay, once that short space had gone, what does the business look like? And actually it looked pretty different. And the person they wanted then is different to the person they want now. So what we've done is we've looked at solutions, we put in a contractor just to feel the pain side now, and brought that in very quickly. And we are planning to bring in the right person on the longer term that will then have longevity with the organisation. So actually it costs more to get it wrong in the beginning. So that planning is really, really important.
And in fact, one of the worst things you can do is hire as a knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
That's where you make the wrong decisions. Sorry, Donna.
No, you're right, Heather, because what you think you want now isn't necessarily right for what you want longer term. But also, is it really what you want now? Are you thinking straight? And it's about taking that time out of the business with either somebody like yourself or like with me that asks the question, because it's almost as acting as a consultant to question your thinking about what it is it. And that's invaluable.
And for everyone, Donna is a service to our members. She's always at the end of the phone. She will always have this chat. It's part of your membership to help you really think through these talent things. And I know that when you're needing to recruit because you have to recruit because you've got no choice because maybe a staff member's left, but that's where you make your wrong decisions. That's where your mindset goes into just anyone, as long as they can do a set of accounts. And this is the big thing, is proactive recruitment is so key. But also these are some of the mistakes we've seen, haven't we, Donna? So Donna, does the 1 in a million candidate exist?
No, not at all. But the very close to 1 in a million does exist. But you need to understand what you're recruiting for. So you need to have what I normally do when I work with my clients is I normally ask them for a list of must-have, nice-to-haves, and kind of the wish list. And I recruit accordingly. We try and recruit for the top candidate. But what can they really sort of like move on? Because those diamonds are really tough to find. like really, really tough to find. And if you've got time, but if you've worked and you've given the time frame, and we've got a longer period to look for them, then you're going to get closer to that match. But you do need to know where you can flex.
And you know, Ian only came into our business because Donna sat me down and said, you know, you've got this list of requirements, this person doesn't exist. And so Donna had sat me down, Donna recruited Ian. And so it's really important to know that difference between the nice to haves and the must haves. Too often we're too inflexible. Now we've seen this a lot, haven't we, recently, where somebody looks great on paper. You know, they've got they're just about to do their final ACCA exam, and their CV says this, but actually they've turned out to be really lacking in personal experience. Where have you seen that, Donna, before?
Well, this is where the behavioural profiling comes in. So the interview is okay, and they can interview really well, but the behavioural profiling really picks out. So what we've done before, so with another member, actually we look at the CVs. We do the first sift on, so you can do your first sift on CVs and pre-interview, and you think you know what they're like. You then do the behavioural profile, and it tells you what they're really like. So most people you'll hire on what we call level 1 and level 2. Now, level 1 is appearance. Do they look good? People make, even on LinkedIn, you look at the picture because you'll do your stalking first, and you look at the picture and you think, actually, they look nice. It's unconscious bias. You're going to do it, or you're going to make the decision. So you make your decision very quickly on appearance. Then you look at their skill set. So you look at the CV and you go, yep, they've done jobs like this before. Brilliant. So they must be good at it. Also, you look at longevity. So have they stayed in a job role for a length of time? This is where things are turning quite considerably at the moment. So whereas job hopping used to be, because as I say, I've been in it a long time, job hopping actually used to be seen as ambitious. Now it's actually seen as what's wrong with them. Why are they job hopping? And especially within the industry that we're in, so it rings alarm bells. So if you see that they've been in a job for a long time, it's got the same job title as you've got, they've got it on their CV that they can do X, Y, Z, and actually they possibly can, but do they fit in with your organisation? Because what we do is we hire on level 1 and 2, and behaviours is level 3, and that's normally why we fire them, because they just don't fit into what we want them to fit into, our teams, our organisations. Can they multitask? Are they driven? And what I've seen really interestingly, when people are recruiting for the same roles, they're not looking for the same behaviours. The organisation looks for different behaviours even within the same job title. Really interesting.
Yeah, so one of the things that we discovered with a couple of our members, that we had a couple of people that absolutely flew through the interviewing stage. They looked right on paper, and when it came down to it, they couldn't put a set of accounts together if they tried, and that was going to be a key part of their role. So one of the things that we introduced, well, you introduced the Accountants Recruiter with questions from club members. So Teresa at Lynn supplied them. Is we actually had we put together some sample technical questions for bookkeepers and newly or nearly partly qualified. Izzy supplied some of the questions as well that are there. And we now say to people, before you even bring them into interview, send them this and get them to send it back. Because we're finding that if it really weeds out who wants a job, doesn't it? And people go to us, but can they do it on the internet? And you go, well, at least they take initiative, you know, and a lot of we wanting. So Adam, you've got a great example of this with your marketing person. Do you want to share it?
Well, yeah, actually, and there's an update from this morning. So I've gone for a Kickstarter, a marketing person, and yeah, I sent them a task to create a fake Instagram post for a fictional event. I put like 5 bullet points, like they had to put a date, a price, call to action, things like that. And I asked them to send it to a different email address. I think I stole all these things either from you or from someone else. And yeah, and basically I said, can you send it by 5 p.m. Tuesday, and we'll have the interview on Wednesday. He's not sent anything. So yeah, he's been binned.
Well, interestingly, he read really well on paper. He got a first in business studies. He spoke, he was quite articulate over the phone, but that little test, that half an hour piece of work, his behavior, he couldn't do it. He just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Now, this is one that is, we have to turn around and put the blame squarely at the accountant's fault here, is we've seen many candidates get a job offer and go elsewhere because people have either been inaccessible at interview time or too slow decision making. In fact, you know, one of our members that you'd lined up a great, was it a management accountant that you'd lined up, that they loved her, she loved them, but they just delayed their feet on making the job offer, didn't they?
Yeah, you have to move really quickly, even within, so what they say is when people apply for a role, you've got a limited window to keep the momentum going, and that's normally 2 days maximum. So you've got to move really, really fast. And if I were you, once you've considered, if you've got somebody that you like the look of on paper, consider the process quite quickly. So know when you've got your interview times available. So get your teams and go, right, if this person's right, when can we interview? And get it moving very quickly, because good candidates, if they are actively looking, you're going to lose them very quickly.
Mm-hmm. And the other one that we really advise, and we do it ourselves, and I know most of you've got really small teams that can't do this, but if you've got another team member, bring them into the interview with you. You know, so for you, Izzy, bring the Deborah in, bring these people into the interview with you, because it's really, really useful to have a second opinion, and they will always pick up different things from you. And as you get bigger and bigger, if you're anything like me, I just think the best out of people. I just want to give them a job because I like them. I don't want to say no. But Ian, when did you finally get to speak to me in our process in person?
Yeah, it was a really interesting process. So the way Heather and Donna managed the process when I applied for the position that I'm in as a growth coach at AMC, I first dealt with Donna's partner, who basically sounded me out, then had a chat with Donna and did some profiling. Then I actually got to meet Val, who's here today, and the team. And following that was then given quite a meaty presentation, shall we say, to put together, which I did overnight. And that was really important to me, to show that without too much thinking, I could put together a well-designed proposal that hopefully made sense for the brand and for Heather and the team. And then finally, I received a video from Heather saying that she was looking forward to seeing me the next week. And then I actually got the interview from Heather. So there was quite a few stages in the process where I had to be consistent, be on time, so that I could do the work. And each time they actually told me what they expected from me for that session. In the background, I got the opportunity to ask a lot of questions about the business. Donna really helpfully knew everything there was to know about AMC, and if she didn't, she would quickly go and get any questions that I'd asked. But it was a really good, well thought out experience that hopefully enabled them to find the right candidate for the role.
Well, time will tell, but we think so. But can you see, this is, so for us, you know, it was a major hire. And for a lot of you, you're going to be bringing in probably a major hire in the next 6-12 months, the 30, 40, 50 grand hire. You know, that's the sort of diligence that we do. We suggest you do the triple fit test, where you're looking at behavioral, cultural, technical. And I know when Donna does her work, she's helping with all those three of them. She'll give you questions to ask. She helps you get that triple fit, because that's what we're trying to do, is get that triple fit. So Donna, you've been in recruitment 25 years. So spill it. You know, what's the reality of using a recruiter? What are the warts and all? Why do people get called pond feeders, bottom feeders, low lives? Why do recruiters get called this?
I love it. I'm not even going to comment. Not all recruiters are the same, and also it depends on who you're dealing with. But you can, I mean, you don't have to use a recruiter. You can do it all yourself. And actually, I do help some people do it themselves, because there are some roles that you can do that. You don't need a specialist recruiter to do it. Ordinarily, you can use, for example, LinkedIn and other job sites yourself, but recruiters have what we call specialist tools that you wouldn't have. So ordinarily you would advertise yourself, and you would get candidates that would apply, people that are actively looking for roles. One of the main benefits of using a recruiter and how we find our best people is actually that we search. So we go looking for that person. So we have licenses for job sites, especially LinkedIn, and we go and approach people on your behalf. So we act like your sales team, really. So that's one of the main reasons why you would look at using a recruiter. Also, as Heather's put, that a lot of local recruiters use their main sales pitches. We have a massive database. Yeah, they may have a massive database of candidates that they've never spoken to. They haven't got that rapport with them, and they don't actually understand, and they literally get CVs off job sites and send them to you. And that's where you'll find, I'm sure this resonates with a lot of people, where you'll get the same CV from 4 or 5 different recruiters within a day. And that's because they've literally put themselves on a job site, they picked it up and they've sent it to you. They've not matched them to you. They've literally just picked it up and gone to, we call it selling out to multiple people on a database, and that's how it works.
The other thing is, you've also got to realise that the bit of copy you give to that recruiter, they don't tend to rewrite that much. So if you go to 2 or 3 local recruiters, they'll put the same job advert on these big databases. So Indeed is sort of the one of the moment that a lot of people use. And if candidates see that advert with more than one recruiter, you start to look desperate and disorganized. And what you've actually got to realize is, and Donna said it, when you go out to a recruiter, they are representing your brand. So if the recruiter leaves a bad impression, your brand gets trashed, absolutely trashed. They are delivering the first impression for you. Now, if you decide not to use a recruiter, you've also got to think about, if I'm doing it myself, what impression do I want to give? What is that going to look like? And that's so important. You know, and the reason why so many of you have called recruiters names in the past, you know, we've heard pond life, bottom feeders, scum, all of this sort of stuff. The reality is to remember that however you do recruitment, your brand as an employer is going to be tested. If you end up being disorganized, I remember, has any of you ever had that experience where you've been left waiting for an interview to start? For me, my worst was an hour in the gatehouse of an electrical manufacturing facility. And so when they said we want to take you to the next level, I turned it down. And the recruiter was, why? They loved you. I said, yeah, the manager left me waiting in the gatehouse for an hour. Anybody else got any more of these horror stories?
Not that bad, but when I left my corporate job, I applied for a local firm who wanted a part-time accountant who'd worked in house building, which is what I'd been doing. And actually, it wasn't necessarily the going for the interview, but actually taking a decision. It took him weeks to make a decision about what he was doing, and going backwards and forwards, and it was a bit of a nightmare.
Because your people that you're recruiting will take their experience with you and, rightly or wrongly, extrapolate to what it would be like if you were working for them. So Donna, you and I have learned a lot with you recruiting 20 accountants and bookkeepers, and me being there and talking to you about it. So what are some of the stuff that you've learned, Donna, in the last 6 months?
Yeah, I can go on to that, but I just want to go back to what you were saying about the benefits of using a third party, whether that be yourself or somebody, a recruiter or somebody else. One of the benefits that I find is when you have somebody in between the client and the candidate, is that the negotiation is a lot easier. And I act as that intermediary. So I find it's almost, you know, like the estate agents of the world, where you get an offer in and they want this, they want that, and then you have to try and make sure that it happens. It's in my interest, and I can manage both expectation levels and get the match right. There have been many a time where a candidate has phoned me and gone, Donna, I'm not actually going to go for the interview, and I've sold the role and everything else to them because it looks different than it does on paper, or that I know where the company is going, etc. And I can get them to interview, and then I can manage them through the process. So the benefit of using an intermediary is really good in that sense, to ensure that you get to your end result. And somebody like myself is experienced in doing that. That's what we do. Some agencies actually have what they call closers, to make sure that it actually gets to get the people start, because again, the intermediary side is once they've handed their notice in and then they get the counter offers, etc. Again, you know, that's where the management needs to happen, and it needs to be quick as well. You need somebody that is ready to get on the phone as soon as that email comes through, whilst the emotions are high, to make the most of it and actually get it through the gate. So sorry, but that's, you know, it's really quite, that's a really important part, because you've done all the work. You've done your advert, you've shortlisted, you've done your pre-screens, you've done your competency questions, you've done your behavior profiles, you've done your first interviews, you've done your second interviews, actually, and then to lose it at that point, is just so wasted. So that is as important afterwards. But anyway, sorry.
And I can vouch for Donna's persuasive skills. She's managed to get me to spend a lot of money on her, bringing new people, and Ian will vouch that I'm not good at spending money like that. But I'll also vouch for the fact that Donna has told me several times where I've gone, oh yeah, they look good. She goes, no, they're not. They're not right for you. You're not interviewing them. So Donna will tell you straight when they're not right for you, even if you get really excited about them. So what are some of the things you've learned in the last 6 months after recruiting in over 20 accountants?
Well, I've recruited lots of other people, but 20 accountants in the last 6 months. But the main thing is that actually not everybody's good is the same. So where a candidate comes to me and they are of a senior level within one organisation, I'll talk to another organisation. And I've got to be fair, especially your members, their levels of good are much higher than some I've seen. So therefore, good isn't the same in every organisation. And the roles are very different, because where you get your big four, they're very structured in what they do, they're very sectioned, and they specialise in a certain area. That's all well and good, but when you're looking for somebody that you want, and especially within smaller organisations, you want them to do most things, and we have to make sure that they're good all-rounders. And again, it's very different. As I said before, the McQuaig has shown that the McQuaig profiling, because what we do is we actually profile the role for you. So it's not just about, so with a lot of behaviour profiles, it will tell you what the candidate is like. What the McQuaig does is we profile your role. So you put in what you want it to look like. So this is what I want someone to look like. This is my template. Ideally, this is what it is. And actually that also shows up when you're looking for two people, when you're looking for someone that doesn't exist. And we have a lot of clients where they put in what they want, and it comes out in what I call transition, because what they want is two people with two different skill sets, but they want it in one, and that's where it doesn't exist. So we have to go, okay, that's where we really draw down as to actually what is it that is so important in this role, and can we look at the other jobs that you're looking for someone, the other tasks, can they be outsourced, or can we do something else with those? So it's more about being much more consultative and finding what they're looking for. So yeah, that's most of it. And the other thing is good candidates are absolute gold dust.
And to the point where Donna found a great candidate, actually went to the company chat line and told us she found a cracking candidate, and then she said, and I will introduce them to at least 2 of your members that I know are looking for something like this. And that's one of the benefits of working with a specialist accountancy recruiter. They know this stuff. Now, I want to go back into this relying on gut instinct and feel in an interview. I made a 10 grand mistake last year. And I think most of you probably can't afford to make a 10 grand mistake. But if we're bringing in, say, a qualified bookkeeper, a virtually qualified or a newly qualified accountant, you're looking at between 20 and 35 grand of cost, annual costs, and that doesn't include all the other salary costs that come and all of this sort of stuff. And so we brought in someone to head up the growth specialist team. We'd done it. The only thing we didn't do was the profiling. So they'd met and talked to my team at the time. I'd sat down with them, but we didn't do any technical stuff. They looked good on paper. We had a great conversation. They fit really well in the team. But actually, when it came down to it, they weren't a good behavioural fit. And if we'd profiled them, I'm sure that would have come out straight. And as a result, we had to say goodbye within 2 months of them joining. And interestingly, from the point that I offered them a job and said to them, when can you start? And I'd already explained the seasonality, and thinking that they were going to say, yeah, we'll come in August. They said, oh, first week in October. I'm like, you don't get it. Already there was a moment. And interestingly, over the next 2 months, they did come and join in September eventually, but over the next 2 months, there were all of these little moments that were saying something's not right here. But we often ignore those little moments. We override them by, oh, actually, they're going to be fine. And Donna, you're seeing this now, which is something that you've not seen before. Can you talk to us a bit about this pickiness, about where they'll work, how they'll work?
Totally. They are really, really picky. So I've had somebody turn down an interview this week because they've looked online at the organisation and their offices are too old and outdated, which tells them enough about the organisation that they are going to work for. And that is to how picky. Now, people might say, okay, if they're that picky, I don't want them in my business. But it's a whole picture. Your employer branding is so important, and it also tells people what type of organisation you are and whether they would fit with you. I'm going to use Richard as an example. So Richard and I spoke a little while ago, and he was looking for somebody. I did research on him as an organisation, and he's quite unique in his branding. But that tells me about the type of person that he also wants to attract and that will be attracted to him. But your branding is really important. People think about their sales for their clients. I think you also should have a separate focus on what you look like to bringing in your future employees. And if you're small now, it doesn't matter, because you want to grow and you want to bring in the best there is. So you need to look at how you look to the outside world. Glassdoor is a really good, a really useful tool. So again, when I start working with an organisation to represent them, I try and give as much info about them as I can. So I do my research on them, and I looked recently at it wasn't a member, at somebody on Glassdoor, and they were slated from past employees, and they were unaware of this. And when I spoke to them, they were like, oh, actually, yeah, that could be part of our problem, and actually they rectified it, and it's moving forward. But people look at these things. People do their research on your company. So it is so important as to how you look to them, and your advert and everything else will say all of that, but it's not what you say, it's what others say.
And I think there's a really important thing is we often think, oh, I need to be a really big business to be attractive. No, for a lot of candidates, your size, the relationship they can have with the founder, your ideals are really, really compelling. It's so important to be honest. But if you're going to go out to recruitment, make sure your website is up to date. You know, if any of you need a new website, you know, we remember there's the club offer that you can get a new website from £1,400. That includes all copywriting. And I know, Adam, you did that. And Izzy, you've done that. So you've got to make sure that that thing you're showing to the outside world matches. And interestingly, one of our members found, and they're an Asian practice. They're an Asian practice, and they're recruiting at the moment. And they had 2 people say to Donna, no, thank you, because it's an all Asian practice. So we talk about diversity being important. And Ian has the pleasure of being the only male in our business. We are looking for an extra man for you, Ian.
It's fine. I don't need a man. I'm happy.
But just someone that will talk football with you. but you've got to, this is part of your talent management plan going forward. If you're not thinking long term, this is where you can kind of get into these holes of, oh, we're an all female business, or we're an all male business, or we're an all white business, or an all Asian business. And sometimes that can be very, very off-putting. So let's just look at the recruitment process. So this is your step by step. So the first thing is, if you don't know where your business is going, you can't put in a talent plan. End of. You know, and it's really, really simple. So overlay your growth plan with your talent plan. But with my learning and development hat on, we tend to recruit people in as static. They'll come in and do this role. They'll stay with us forever. Box ticks. I don't need to worry anymore. Or maybe that's just me as a business owner. But the reality is that people change. You know, we had a much liked, much loved growth specialist in the club who grew out and wanted to be his own man and run his own business. And so you've got to really think about who's going to grow into a role, who's going to grow out of a role. And I know within our business, we've sort of thought, where are people moving from and to? We're starting to put in a little bit of a career plan. And, you know, and I'm looking at, I know most of you are really, really tiny at the moment. I know you've got a few more people, Teresa, but Teresa, it is about thinking who in your business, and I imagine you've got some bookkeepers that just want to be a bookkeeper. Yeah. And they're very happy with being a bookkeeper. And those are brilliant, aren't they? But actually, there'll be others that need a career path. So you've got to think about this stuff. But also, who's a weak link? And I'm not just talking about the people that you directly employ as a permanent employee. I'm thinking about suppliers, offshore roles, permanent roles. Because I imagine you're probably like us as a business. And we have some people that we have an offshore role. We outsource some of our marketing overflow. We have permanent roles. But actually, part of your leadership team thinking every month needs to be who is a weak link at the moment, and can they be fixed? Now, most people can be fixed, by the way. It's very rare that they can't, but it's really important. The next thing we don't often think about is, where do you have risks if a key person leaves? And for a lot of you, where do you have risks if you were out of the business? Maybe you had an operation and couldn't work for 2-3 weeks. Where do you have risks, and what are the contingency plans? And I know that my stress levels went up for about 5 months before Ian came on board, because I knew I had a major vulnerability with someone with a flight risk that I knew was no longer fitting with the business why. And my stress levels were quite high until we found you in, by the way, just to let you know. They've only gone up now. No, they've only gone down. Don't worry. But actually, it's really important. And at what point do you need them in the business? So usually that's 3 to 6 months before you need them up to speed. You need to start that process. The more senior they are, the longer it will take to do that. So Donna, how do sort of help some of our members, or have done in the past, with that first stage?
To be honest, it just starts with the so first of all, we look at what, as you quite rightly said, who's in the business, and you can actually use the profiling tool to do that. So you can profile your current staff and find out, because what it tells you, interestingly, and I've done this with some of your members, is where they are and where they're being underutilized and overutilized in some areas. So where they're being pushed and pulled, because it tells you what their situational is like and what they're really like. And what's identified in some cases is where people are being underutilized, and where a manager or an owner has come and gone, do you know what, I didn't actually realize that you wanted to be given more opportunity, wanted to be given more work, and they were like, yeah, just that's how I like to work. And so actually that person grew into another role, which meant that the role they thought they were going to recruit for was different, because they didn't need to bring in a new person to cover a certain task. So always have a look at that first, because if you can work with the people that are right fit for you, do that bit first. Yep. Then what I normally do is work strategically with them. So Izzy, I'm sure you won't mind me saying that Izzy and I are conversing at the moment with the view of his recruitment in possibly August, September time. And we're looking at what it is he wants, and we're talking through that. So it's more of a consultative approach. So we'll go, right, let's have a look at the marketplace, and we'll work together on, so I will then feed back and like, look, this is what's going on in the market. This is where, this is where people are. I've spoken to this, and also salary surveys. So I can tell you, are you actually right? Can you get what you want for the money? And if not, do you have to build more into your budget? Or do you relook at the role? So we look at that, and we can then recruit in a much more structured environment. People, the way that I like to say to people is, use me like your internal, external recruitment team, because that's in effect what I am. I have sat in on a lot of board meetings where they've been talking about strategic talent planning, to act as an advisory to what's going on in the market, and and can they get what they realistically want, and that's the best way to use anybody like myself, or anybody that's going to assist you with that recruitment, to look at that.
So the next step is clarity about who and what you need. And I just want to give a bit of an example. So for many years, I've wanted an electric car. I always said that when my now previous car was on its last legs, the next car we'd get is an electric car. Now I have 2 teenage children. So I also like taking my mountain bike. So I was drawn to the Tesla X. The Tesla X was what I would have really, really wanted. Sadly, it comes with a 90 grand price tag. And I only really wanted to spend my normal amount, which is when we buy a second-hand car, of 6 grand. And we've done that for many, many years, 6 grand second-hand car, job done. But the problem is we see this when accountants are recruiting. They want that Tesla X because they can put the tow bar on and the bike cars on. They want the Tesla X, but they only want to pay for a second-hand Ford Mondeo. And this is the real issue. And this is, Donna will give you accurate information, but we've got to really be honest. Who and what do you need? We often think we want an apprentice because they're cheap, but then we don't factor in how much time we need to spend with them, supervising them, helping them, moving them forward. So it's about really important by looking at what you need. So what's the technical, behavioral and cultural fit? And it's so important that they get your why. If you recruit in someone because they like you, you like them, and they think they're coming into a business that's going to tick along and it's going to do what it's going to do, rather than the business that's going to grow, going to be 10 people within 5 years, they will leave. And it's really, really common to see an accountancy firm's first hire leave within a number of years when growth really sets in, because people don't share that why. People don't share that vision. Our team member that left recently that we miss, didn't stop sharing that vision. They didn't want to be part of an organization that was growing that quickly. So it's really important that they get your why, that behaviorally they'll work in the way you want them to work. We've had members where their culture is very nice, very, very nice. And Donna's had to turn around and say, this person will disrupt. They'll tell it like it is. Is that what you want? Or is that actually not going to fit? And profiling can tell you this. But also I've had interviews where Lisa and my team and other team members have done it and turned around and said, no, this is not a good fit, Heather. This person would get in an argument with you very, very quickly. This is not what you want. Is it going to be, are they going to work and they're going to get the team dynamics? And you've already explained about the what's essential, what's nice to have. Also, if you can, as Donna has already said, if you can offer a level of flexible working, you will have far more of the marketplace than if you're just remote or just you've got to be in the office full time. And the next thing is about salary and perks. We often think as a small business that we can't compete with the large regional firms around us and what they can offer. And actually, we've got to think about it differently. What is it can we offer that people would really value? So you start to flip what you see as the negatives to the positives. So a small team is an intimate working environment where you feel part of the family, that you're no longer a number, where you've got one-to-one time with the founder of the business, can really feel as if you're an essential part and wanted and needed. All I've done is just flipped around the power of being really small. You can then flip around with the power of being small, is you can be actually incredibly flexible compared to a Haynes Watt, a BDO or whatever, because you can really create that. Some of the salaries and perks, you might not be able to give them private health insurance, but sure as hell you can have fruit delivered to the office once a week. You can have pizza Fridays, which you might not have in a big office. So remember that perks don't need to be monetary. They can be how you work, the way of life. But also remember that the very fact you're here is you're a really innovative practice. You're a growing practice, you're an innovative practice, and it's an exciting place to be. I look at someone like you, Rich. You've taken the model of how to run an accountancy practice, ripped it up, chucked it out, and are doing it your way. And, it's a chance to work with a real pioneer in the industry. And if you need words, Donna will give them to you, by the way. She sells in small accountancy firms day in, day out. She knows the hot buttons that these people are looking for. And the reality is, when you're going out to market, don't market yourself as if you're this big, all singing, all dancing practice, because you will get candidates who want the big, all singing, all dancing practice. And so be who you are and really authentic. But also plan your candidate search. So how do you plan the candidate search, Donna? What are the steps you typically do?
First of all, you obviously your search is where you look at what you're looking for, so your job description. So do that. That's great. So you look at that. You look at the skill set you want, the behaviours that you want, and then obviously the tasks that you want them to do. Job descriptions are still being asked for, but very rarely. That's kind of after the time that you want to interview. But have a look at it, because what that will do is then base the start of your advert. Your advert's really different. Your advert's not about you. Your advert's not at all about you. Your advert's about what you can give them. What is it that they want? People don't read, a lot of them are reading on telephones now. So it needs to be quite short and snappy, your advert. It doesn't need your whole of your job description in it. And the first paragraph needs to be about what you can do for them. So what is it that you can do for them? How are you different? So ordinarily I would start off, so if somebody's got the opportunity to become a salaried partner, that would go in there, so the ambition. If somebody gives extra holiday, that's how I would start it. If it's a really innovative, forward-thinking organisation that's totally paperless, that's how I'd start it. And when I speak to my candidates, I always ask them, what is it that attracted you to the role? and there's always something about the first bit in that job description and that advert that has just pulled them in. It's a bit different. It doesn't have to be stuffy. Don't make it stuffy, make it about you. But also don't make it gimmicky, because it won't be looked and viewed in the same manner. The other thing that's a really good one is job titles. Don't use really bizarre job titles, because search engines don't like them. So I found this when I've put in client managers. Client manager can mean anything. You have to put account senior, or because it has, or senior accountant, or because the algorithms of the computers and the websites won't pick up. So if you're going to look for a job, you put in the title and it will bring up everything with that title. So as much as it might make you look a bit different, put it in the, if you want to put it in the advert a bit further down, but don't make the title gimmicky. Then you've got your where to advertise it. So you will advertise it on Indeed is free. You can sponsor on Indeed. Sometimes it's worth it, but Indeed will give you 1,001 candidates that are ordinarily not very good. So you can advertise free on Indeed. You can also advertise one job on your LinkedIn profile for free of charge. Again, it's not sponsored. It won't go in front of the right people necessarily, but it's worth getting it out to your network. So put it on there. Again, if you're going to advertise something, put it with a picture. Pictures of people normally are better. So put the picture on there. Canva's a great tool. I know that Ian's works most of our members with Canva. So do your picture and then put the job ad in there. Don't be too specific in that, because again, you just want to generate some attraction. So you can put it there and then put it all through your social media. And try and get people to share it. So your Facebook page, on Facebook, there's loads of job social groups that you can have in your area. Put it on there. It's a bit harder when you're looking for remote and you're not too fussed where, but if it's local, it's a lot easier to advertise it on Facebook. Yeah, get your staff moving, and then put it on your website. Quite recently, I had a client that managed to attract somebody, just literally applied on the website just out of nowhere. So always make sure that your website's updated.
Mm-hmm.
And also make sure, sorry Heather, make sure that, it's up to you obviously, but make sure that you put no recruitment agencies on there, because people trawl and you will be inundated rather than applicants with recruitment companies.
Yeah. So another thing is, and particularly for you, Teresa, because you've got quite a few members of staff, is get your staff to put your job advert on their Facebook, their Twitter, their Instagram, because your staff know what it's like to work with you, and it makes a difference. So once you've actually planned your candidate search, unsurprisingly, you've then got to do the active search, you know? And that's about thinking about who's going to do it, where are you going to put stuff, and most importantly, that you're on it. Because if you start to delay getting back to clients, spend ages getting interviews set up, it's just not going to happen. And already you're starting to damage your employer brand and your opportunities. When you then get that, you get into long and short listing. So this is what Donna and the recruiters would call pre-screening. This is where you want to check the CVs and application forms. You want to, and we would recommend you do a technical test. I will at the end just show members, and Rebecca, of course, you can see what there is in the membership library to help you with all of this sort of stuff. Behavioural profiling. Now, if you want Donna, she will do the behavioural profiling for you. You don't need to take all of her recruitment services. If you want Donna's team to write a job advert for you, she'll do that for you. You don't need to do the full kind of stuff. So you want to do this step. You want to do it fairly quickly, but you want to do it decisively. Next step is to interview the shortlist of candidates. If you use Donna does the first round for you, and we'll give you a good 3 sort of good candidates normally. Depends, but with your first and second interviews, this is where you're looking for behavioural fit and cultural fit. Ideally, you've done a technical test and you've checked out their qualifications. Now, if you've got very junior members coming in, maybe a trainee, apprentice, actually think about doing a paid trial day or a trial week, because you'll get to see what somebody's like over the course of a week, about whether they've really got it. As I've said, we have some technical questions that you can ask them beforehand. For example, some of our members get, in fact, one of our real specialist tax property members, he gets people to do a presentation to an interview to see how well they are at thinking on their feet, what they do. So there's all sorts of things. So don't just, in this sort of selection stage, rely on an interview. In fact, the more kind of technical tests that you can put in, particularly for your recently qualified bookkeepers, part-time bookkeepers, partly qualified accountants, are really, really important. Izzy's coming back, and I think he would have refilled his coffee again. Is there any, Donna, any good non-interview tactics that you've seen that really works?
When you say non-interview tactics
for this selection phase, that doesn't involve having an interview with someone?
Yeah, no, the competency questions are good. They don't only just test competency, they actually test their want for the role. So are they just applying, or do they really want the role? So for me, it tests the commitment level, and also if I have to chase someone for the replies, it tells me enough about them as well. So it's not just technical.
So to give you an idea, how many people applied for our PA role, Donna? So we put out a PA role, part-time, work from home, which is your absolute utopia for a lot of, should we say, mothers with children.
Yeah. So we had 350 applicants to this role. I automatically downsized by some just putting in some keywords, and I managed to get it down. I think I managed, before I screened CVs, I managed to get it down to around about 70. I then CV screened and managed to get it down to 24. And so what I did was I competency questioned on the 24. That got us down to 10. And then from the 10, from the level of competency, I got it down to 5, and from 5 that did the presentation that you looked at, got it down to 4 to behavioural, and now we are interviewing. So they've had to jump over some real hurdles to get to interview, and they won't even get to interview with you at this point. They'll get to interview with your team and then you. So they've gone through some hurdles. This is all well and good when you've got a massive pool. What you have to remember is when you are looking for something that is like gold dust, then don't make them jump through too many hurdles, I've got to be honest, because if you really want this person, we have to do it a different way. So I would sell the job to them first. I would get them in front of you quickly to make sure we secured them. Then we would test. So actually shift it. So shift it to the fact of, look, let's sell them the job, let's sell them you, let's get them absolutely wanting, then get them to do the competency. You have to flex dependent upon the candidate base and what we can do with them. Yeah, and these. So if you're looking for apprentice and you might go out to a college, actually it would be appropriate to give them a technical test. You know, and our technical test for a PA involved them researching what books I'd actually written. Most of them failed. They didn't, they were clearly told all the paperback editions, and none of them has managed to get it right so far, but it's just very interesting. We gave them a couple of real emails of what would you do, how would you respond? And then how would you sort of set it up with Heather? So it wasn't big ones, but actually it got rid of a lot of people because we saw their commitment levels. So really, you might like to think a little bit laterally about that selection stage. Then you want to make a job offer. Now, I've said this before. If it's a good candidate, this is not the time to nickel and dime on, can I get away with only paying them this? If you're thinking, can I get away with only paying them this? You are asking yourself the wrong question. Because remember, you can't go out and buy a Tesla X for the cost of a cheap Ford Mondeo. And if you start scrimping at the offer stage, it sends out a message to the candidate.
it sends out a really bad message to the candidate. And this is, Donna, how many people have you lost because of this job offer stage?
Not too many with the AMC, but an awful lot through my years. And the main thing is, it's not even about the money. It tells them what their employer is going to be like longer term, when they may need some flexibility, when they may need when they're looking for promotion, etc. So it's the message as opposed to the actual amount that it's sending.
Yeah. And also, when you think about your perks, you know, you look at it and you think, oh, well, I can't do this, I can't do that, and I'm not this. I saw a major law firm was offering their female employees 45 grand's worth of fertility treatment, and, you know, all of this. You kind of think, oh, I can't match. But you think laterally about your perks. You know, for example, you know, there's all sorts of things. So I say to my team, look, we're a virtual team. Use your Zoom, use your Google Meet with friends and family. And I know Val found that really, really helpful at the pandemic when everybody's locked down to speak to friends and family, you know. So there are some things that you can say to people, yeah, just do that. So next thing, of course, is you've got to get the employment contract signed.
Sorry, Heather, can I just go back to the perks?
Yes.
Also, don't necessarily, if you can, don't necessarily have a company-wide perk. Look at individuals, because what one might want, the other one might not. And then because you're small organizations, you can really attract people based on that.
Yeah, absolutely. For example, if you offshore in the Philippines, a great perk is after they've been there a year that you'll pay for private medical insurance for them. You know, it's a tiny amount for us, but it's a massive difference for them. So actually making sure that you're thinking individually as well as globally around that. In terms of employment contract, you need a proper employment handbook, a proper employment contract that is tailored to how your business runs. Now, I know what it's like because I hear our lovely members talking about it. Do not borrow somebody else's contracts because they're not set out for how you work. If you don't have some, you know, we have, you can get 10% off as an Accountancy Club member with Annabelle Kay's materials, the bookkeeping and accountancy, employment contract, employment handbook. And she's also got, you'll get 10% off as well for contracts if you're using an offshore bookkeeper or offshored or outsourced suppliers. They are there, and as a member you get 10% discount. They're all those links have finally set them up in the membership library. And then you want to get the start date agreed. Now, this is where a lot of people go wrong. They get to this point and they go, right, done the hard work, sorted it, they're coming in. And actually, this is where a lot of stuff can go wrong. Because what you don't realize in the background is that if they're coming from a job, their employer may be counter offering. They may also have 2 or 3 potential offers on the go. And we forget that. We actually forget all of this. So actually, there's quite a lot of work to be done before their start date. So Ian, what was some of the stuff we did before you started? Because I think you started 2-3 weeks later, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right. I think it was bringing me gently into some of the meetings. It was also making sure I'd got some good insight into the books. It was setting out the priorities for the organisation, and of course the expectations for the role were covered. But it gave me an opportunity to research all of the things that I probably didn't know a lot about before joining, so I could hit the ground running straight away.
You know, Ian was the lucky recipient. Was it 4 or 5 books?
Yeah, it was about 6.
Yeah, was it all the 6? I'm not sure whether you got How to Make Partners Serve a Life. That's a 30-quid book. But yeah, it's, you know, this is your time to start to bring them into the culture of your firm. So how about a welcome pack? You know, not just the computer that gets sent to them. And Alvina, just in case you're listening, We're still thinking about this stuff. There should be some stuff coming through to you, just in case you're thinking what's going to happen to me. You know, a welcome pack, not just the computer and your login details. Have you got a manual for them? But also, it's really important to establish what are they going to do in their first 4 weeks? What are their objectives for day one? What are their objectives for week one? And actually putting them on a week by week basis in those early stages is so, so important. The next thing is, don't think just because they start on the 1st of July that they can't do anything with your firm. Get them having phone calls with your current team members. Maybe get them into shadow something when you're with a client. So just as Alvina's in here today, her first official day is tomorrow, but she's come in today. Ian came in and sat in one of the first new business accelerator call that we do with our members, which is all about how do you get in more business, and it's a 12 to 14 week program. And Ian hadn't started, and he came and sat in, and I said to our members, be very gentle, be nice to him. And I think they were, weren't they? There are some characters in that group. So yeah, so bring them in. You know, we've got within the membership library, we'll take you through some of the stuff that's in there. The other thing we do is record some short videos, you know, from you and team members to say hello to them. So just before, so Ian started on a Monday, and I sent to him Friday afternoon this little video to say, look, really looking forward to seeing you on Monday. This is what your day looks like. This is what you can expect. And little things like, don't feel that you have to dress up smartly. We were a casual organization. So all of these things that you probably don't think about are really, really helpful. So how did it feel, Ian, to get that little video on the Friday before your Monday?
Well, it was very different, and I was taken back by it because I think the time it came through, and I actually initially thought, is this a test? Should I be responding to it? Should I send one back? But it was lovely to see it, and I think we were all quite touched by it when it came through. And yeah, it made me feel good, and just that the company was looking forward to having me on board, and kind of put me at ease, really, which is what it's all about. Because everyone fears their first day. Will it go well? Will I get on with everybody? What will I be doing? And it was just a really nice touch, I thought. Yeah,
absolutely. So we're just going to talk a little bit about job descriptions and job adverts, because they are different things and they're really important. Oh, there was one thing I missed out in terms of interview. You can ask things about their childcare as long as they are relevant to the role, and you ask everyone. So one of the things that when we interview part-timers is we will check how are you going to have 3 hours a day that you can fully focus on your work. So if you, oh, hi Shailene, question.
Well, question or a comment rather. So I did a couple of second interviews from candidates that Donna had sourced for us. And here's a tip. They logged in with Zoom IDs of someone else. So I was like, right, so is that so-and-so, or is, oh, sorry, that's my daughter. She's in year 11, and then it kicks off. She's 11 years old. Not that that had any bearing on, but it broke the ice straight away.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. So when you know, if it is directly relevant to the needs of the role. So for example, say that, not that your accountancy firm would ever probably do this, that say you decided to offer a weekend service and phone call, it would be relevant to ask to say, you know, part of the role will have you working the odd Saturday and Sunday. How would that impact your personal and family life? Now, of course, it's really important that you ask it to every single one and you explain. And this is why it's really important when you do an interview that you have an interview plan, you have the questions written down, and you put in your answers, because this is one of the few areas in employment law where people that are not in your business can sue you for discrimination. Whereas if you can turn around and say to them, we ask this to every candidate, this is how it's relevant to the requirements of the role, they have not got a leg to stand on. So let's go and look at the job description and job advert. So you've already mentioned, haven't you, Donna, that the job description details the technical requirements and responsibilities of about you, whereas the job advert is all about them. And just a couple of few tips. If you're going to put this job advert onto an Indeed or a LinkedIn, the title is searchable. The people that are going to be looking for your roles, as Donna said, are not going to be looking for the genie of the firm, you know, even though that might become their name. You know, we have a chief organizer in our business, and she really is the chief organizer. Use the titles in that job advert that the sort of person you're looking for would talk about themselves. Don't use abbreviations. Here at the AMC, we're all about helping businesses grow. Get rid of that abbreviation. Don't use it. And in that job advert, don't put the whole kitchen sink in. It is not a cut and paste of the job description. It really is not a cut and paste of the job description. It should be the essentials to try to eliminate non-qualified candidates. Now, as Donna has just told me, if you go outside of that 2-day window to respond to an applicant, you've probably lost them. So how do you put together the job description? Well, the first thing is think about the key processes in the firm. So we have a model where we talk about create it, which is what am I going to do to generate a lead? Convert it, what am I going to do to get the lead into a new client? Deliver it is what am I going to do to deliver for the clients as part of my job? Deliver it is what am I going to do to deliver via the team or how to help the team to deliver for the clients? Get paid for it, that's all self-explanatory. And then cultivate it is what am I going to do to get more work or maintain the existing work from the current client? So what you want to do is think about those key processes and then brainstorm with your team everything the individual will be doing under those 5 headings. So look at your processes, look at your systems, look at what you expect from a team member. The good news is, if you remember, we've already done a lot of that thinking for you for some of the standard stuff. But you want to put some KPIs on your job description. This is where you want to go to your growth plan to see what KPIs are important to them. How do they link into what you're doing? And then finally, you want to read through the job description to check that this is what you would assess for the right individual in the role. And you might think this takes forever, but actually this is really important. Don't just kind of go, oh, they're going to come and do bookkeeping for us. Really get down to the nuts and bolts of what does bookkeeping mean? Because this is what you want to fundamentally use to check your technical competence that you need to let the candidate know, because they'll want the job description. And actually, this is what you will use to manage them in those initial first few months. And if you have a woolly job description, it's a lot harder to get rid of a bad hire quickly. If your job description has got the KPIs, fully what's to be expected, and you've sat down with them in that first month with this is what you're going to achieve on this day, there is nothing that if there's a problem, you're fully watertight with this kind of stuff. And Ian, what did it feel like when you were given targets for the first 4 weeks?
Well, I think it's the most important thing to get started with something to aim for, and to understand what you should be delivering and working on. I think it stops you getting sucked into other things, which is really easy to do, or the nice things that you probably want to do. And I've seen that quite a lot, where I've actually seen team members come in, give them set tasks, but without having a kind of a long-term roadmap, runway, what have you, to work from. Things can go wrong pretty quickly.
Yep, absolutely. So how do you put together a job advert? So this is where you kind of flip it. You put yourself in the candidate's shoes. So you go back probably a number of years for yourself personally and go, if I was looking for a job, what would I want? So the first thing is lead with your best stuff. So if it's a part-time role, or it's working from home or part working from home, as Donna said, put that in the title. Put that right at the front, lead with it. Because you'll find people looking for part-time bookkeeper, part-time accountant role. Put this in the title. Remember the keywords. And if you need to do a bit of keyword research, go to Indeed. and just do a bit of searching, see what's been put there. The next thing is, this is about writing it with the candidate's perspective of what's in it for me. So if you think about, most of us are really small family-run firms, so think about it along of, I've come and join a really friendly team where you'll feel important, valued, and a key member of the team. You know, we love working together. We play chess on a Friday, you know, that sort of stuff, you know, where you know, maybe some of your quirks come out. As Donna said, is it 2 paragraphs you're looking for?
Yeah, normally, so the two paragraphs, and then the attraction paragraphs, as I would call it. And then the last one is about what the essentials that you need, just to weed out people who aren't suitable. So qualifications, the experience. So what your essentials. So put that in the 3rd paragraph.
Absolutely. If you cut and paste the job description, which most job adverts and on Indeed are, you will switch off good candidates, because what they've actually found is that female candidates, they will need to match up over 90% of that role before they'll apply. Male candidates, often less than 60% to match up. So already by putting in a lot of detail, you could put off really, really good candidates. Next thing is put in the salary range. What was the stats of people that don't apply if there's no salary range?
I think it was over 60%. That if you didn't put the salary on, they wouldn't. So when you just put competitive salary, you won't get the applications.
No, not at all. It's like when people are looking for accountants. If they don't know whether it's in the right ballpark, they won't go and talk to you. The other thing, check for typos and spelling mistakes. This is really, really important. So before you start recruiting, we go back to the basics. Do you have a growth plan and a talent management plan? Then it's about the job description, the job advert, and brainstorming that cultural, behavioural, technical fit. And once you've done those 3 things, you will not go far wrong.